Marhaban. Hello. My name is Ian Campbell. This is the 13th in a series of videos intended to teach you the Arabic alphabet and sound system and to prepare you to understand how to learn vocabulary words. In this lesson, we're going to learn two more letters of the alphabet, meme and noon. This will leave us with only one more to learn. And also introduce the tricky way that words that begin with alif-lam-mem are written. So let's move right into it by talking about meme. It is a connecting letter. It makes the English M sound, so that's completely unproblematic, and is sometimes a little bit tricky to write. So let me get right to that. When we make it by itself, we're going to make a very small counterclockwise loop, that is around to the right, not around to the left, and we're going to make a little horizontal tail and then a long vertical tail. Meme is the smallest letter in the alphabet, especially in its first and middle forms, and so it's often easy to mistake for something else. In printing, especially fancy printing, it will often be written just like a little tab, and sometimes it's really hard to tell that it's a meme, especially at first for new students. So if you ever are reading a printed text and you see something and you're like, what the heck letter is that? The answer is nearly always meme. So forewarned is forearmed. Let's take a look at how to draw it. By its solo form, we're going to make our little counterclockwise loop, our little horizontal tail, and then our much longer vertical tail, like this. In the first position, all we're going to do is to make the loop and move on to the next letter. So you could see how small it is. Arabic loves to put meme at the beginnings of words. It's a grammatical prefix. It's actually about 4 different grammatical prefixes. So you'll see this all the time, a word beginning with the letter meme. Just this little bitty loop like this, smaller than any of the other letters. So please be careful and watch out for it. In the middle of a word, we're going to go from the previous letter, and then we're going to loop down underneath the line and around to the next letter. If you're using the alif-ba book to learn the alphabet, as many students do, or sometimes other books as well, you will also often see middle meme written with the loop around to the right and above the line. And I'm going to ask you not to do this. It's visually confusing because it's easy to mix your meme up with the loop of a fa or a qaf that you forgot to put the dots on, is the reason. The meme loop is much smaller and it's much easier to read if it goes below the line, like this. In the final form, we're going to combine the middle and the solo form. We're going to loop underneath. We're going to give just a little bit of horizontal tail and then the long vertical tail, like this. So it's not that hard to learn to draw, but it's tricky because it's very small and because some people will draw it in this misleading way. So please don't do that. Draw it underneath the line like this. It goes around this direction, not the other direction. So please be careful about that. Now, when we write a word that begins with alif-lam-mem, that is, if we're going to have something that begins with meme, like madrasa is school, and we're going to turn it into al-madrasa, the school, it is usually written in this way. It's going to be alif, and then we're going to make a little space between the alif and the lam, and we're going to make our meme loop over here before we move on to the next letter. So this is visually confusing because it looks like it's alif, meme, lem. And there are a couple of words, like the word for diamonds, for example, that do begin with alif, meme, lem. So we need to be really careful about that. This is just a handwriting quirk, and in print, you will often see it as a really small tab like this. It will be al, and then it will just curve off a little bit to the right here and cruise off to the next letter. And this is really easy to miss, especially if you're a brand new student. Once you see it a few times and you get it, it won't be a problem. But it is definitely visually confusing, which is the reason why I'm giving it its own line here. Alif, lam, meme is often written as if it looked like alif, meme, lem. alif-lam-mem. So pay careful attention, forewarned is forearmed, and all that, and you really won't have trouble with it. It's just not usually brought up in a lot of texts about how to learn the alphabet, and I've seen so many students be confused by this over the years, and I myself was confused when I started learning Arabic, so I want to make sure that you note this, that alif-lam-mem is often written as if it were alif, meme, lem, and then meme is often just written as this tiny little tab here, so be very careful with that. The next letter, noon, is particularly unproblematic. It's a connecting letter. It makes our English N sound, and for some reason I decided to type a couple of extra V's at the end of this, so allow me to fix that. Not exactly sure why I did that. So it's easy to pronounce, it's easy to draw, but it has kind of an odd final form, and let me show this to you. When we have the letter noon by itself, it's a crescent, it's a long crescent, and it's, or rather a deeper crescent than the ba, ta, or tha crescent, and it goes beneath the line like this, and then we have one dot above. So that's what it looks like by itself. It's not the flat crescent of a ba, ta, or tha. It's a shorter and deeper crescent that looks like this, more like a circle. So that's what it looks like by itself, the letter noon. And again, this is just English N as in November. It's very easy to pronounce. And then one dot above. In the final form, going to come from the previous letter, and we're going to make this round crescent, and then we're going to put our dot. But a lot of people, so many people, who learn to write in an Arabic school will write a zigzag like this at the end of the line, or at the end of the word, instead of the regular noon form. So watch out for this because you'll see it quite often. In the first position, it looks just like a ba or ta or tha or ya, only the dot is one above instead of one below or two above or what have you. Same thing in the middle form. It's just going to be a little wee tooth and then one dot above. So the mistake that students often make is that, oh, well, noon looks just like ba, ta, or tha at the beginning and in the middle of a word. So I'll make a final noon that looks like a ba, ta, or tha crescent and do this. And that is not what we want to do. We want to either make this rounder crescent or make this weird little zigzag at the end of a word. I'd make the crescent for now. It's more legible, but you'll see this here and there, and I want you to be able to recognize it when you do see it. So that's the letter noon. Again, totally unproblematic to pronounce, sometimes a little funny to draw. And the letter meme, also very unproblematic to pronounce, but often kind of a pain to draw and read because of the way that print often works. So let's take a look at a bunch of examples of meme and noon here. Both of them are pretty easy, so there's not that many examples here. Here is madrasa for school. So dal, ra, sin is the root for to study something. And if we put meme at the beginning with fatha and then sukun and then another fatha, that gives us the place where you do that thing. So a madras or a madrasa with ta marbuta, sometimes we arbitrarily add ta marbuta, is the place where you study and therefore a school. My daughter is at her madrasa right now and it's the first week of school and she's really not enjoying it. So madrasa. So here's meme at the beginning of a word. Look how little it is. It's just this little bitty loop like this. Here it is in the middle of a word. Tamthil means acting or portrayal. The root is meme, fa, lam here, and this is the taf'il form, making somebody else do that thing. So meme, fa, lam is to portray. Tamthil is acting, portraying someone else is what you're doing here. But you could just see it's just this very small loop under the line like this, easily missed, so watch out for it. Ilm is the word for knowledge, whether secular science or religious knowledge. So here we have meme at the end with the horizontal and the vertical tail. And then a boom is an owl like Harry Potter. So here it is by itself with its loop, its horizontal tail, and its vertical tail. Not really difficult in the final or solo positions, a little more of a challenge in the medial position because you have to go underneath the line like this. And just because it and in the first position are very, very small, they're easy to miss. So here's madrasa for school, only written with alif-lam. So you could see the alif-lam-mem combination and how it looks like alif-mem-lam. If you're not paying attention, it looks like am-ladrasa, but it's not. It's al-madrasa. So watch out for this one. You'll learn to write it like this as well. This is super, super common. And so you want to be prepared to understand it correctly. So even though this looks like am-ladrasa, it's really al-madrasa. So watch out. And then sometimes you'll even see people in handwriting just write it down like a little tab like this. And this is so easily missed, especially if you're brand new to Arabic. So I want to draw your attention to it. So when you see an alif lam and then it sticks out just a little bit to the right over here instead of going directly to the left, that's a meme. And again, if you're reading fancy print and you see something and you're like, what the heck is that little tab? That's a meme, probably. About 90% of the time is what it is. And then here's the letter Nun, which is no problem at all. So Nur means light and is also a common first name for women. If we add alif lam to it, Nun is pronounced up in the front of our mouth. So we're going to absorb the L in alif lam. We're not going to say al-nur like it's written. We're going to say an-nur like that. Here's Nun in the middle of a word. He looks just like a ba, but with the dot on top. So tanzif, the root here is nun va fa, which means clean. So tanzif is cleaning the house, not tidying it up, but scrubbing it down. And it has the same wazn or pattern as tamthil up here. So tamthil, tanzif. I'm going to teach you so much about roots and patterns in the next series of videos that you'll understand why it is that I'm bringing this up here, because it's really, really important to learning proper Arabic. Here's someone's first name, rather, Hossein. It could be someone's last name, for that matter. Very, very common name, especially among Shia Muslims. And here's Nun at the end of a word with this nice fat crescent that goes deep beneath the line. Not sits on the line, like the Bat-Ta-Tha crescent. And then here he is by himself. Yaktubun means he, or they write, rather. Lots and lots of words end with una in standard Arabic, usually with a little fatha here, una, and then also in standard Arabic, but always in colloquial Arabic, end with ina. And most of the time, una and ina are the human plural endings to words. So if you don't know the special word for the plural, you can always use una if you're talking about a group of people. For example, a talib is a student, and it has a special plural, tolab. But if you said talibun, everybody would understand what you meant. Just like if someone said, I have 3 childs instead of 3 children in English, you would understand what they meant. So una and ina are the all-purpose human plural endings for words, and I'll talk much more about this in a later lesson.